Hi everyone, my name is Simon, I'm the founder of Horoma Studio, and today I'll be sharing with you some insight on how to make this really cool image a little bit better. So as you can see, the base image is really nice. There are like interesting details and a quite remarkable atmosphere that I quite like. I'm especially a fan of this area because the artificial lighting here and the overall atmosphere is really sort of eerie. The other thing is that it's sort of have a contrast with the rest of the image, but still I quite like the ground floor is really well done, so I really like it. I'm less of a fan with of the upper part here, but I think it's just a matter of simple tweaks. First thing, I guess, is, and I think it's a little bit problematic, it's not problematic, but still, I think, basically we're here in some sort of suburban houses, and the thing is, they do look a little bit too big in the sense that they're only 2-story high, or 3 stories, whatever, but they're not supposed to look big, and they do look a little bit big, and this comes from two facts. The first one is that our horizon is extremely low, which means this looks much higher than it actually is. So, like if you want to find your perspective or your horizon line, whatever, just do that, and you see your horizon is somewhere around here, which is basically at the height of the door handle, which is something like 1.10, which is something like 50 centimeter under eye level. So basically I would suggest making your image from a little higher perspective, so say 1.65, which is sort of like the usual eye level most people use. So that way that would decrease the perceived height of the building. Second, not problem, but second thing or fact that makes it look a little bit too big, and which is not something you want to actually show, because it's just a suburb house, so you just want it to look nice, not to look like a high building, is to change the framing, because the thing is, as you can see, the building takes like maybe 60% of the whole image, and then you've got vegetation and you don't have much of a ground. Basically, when you look at the rule of third, nothing is really as you can see, our lower third, which usually sits on the horizon, and then we should have something like or point of interest on 1/3, like the left third in our case. So anyway, as you can see, it's a little bit unbalanced, or it looks crammed. So what I did here is redoing the framing a little, which sort of looks like this. So the original framing was, where was it? I think I've deleted it. Oh, whatever. The original framing is this one, which is okay, but it's not the best. And the framing I think is working a little bit better is this one. Basically what I've done is adding a little bit of sky so that it sort of breathes a little bit more, adding a little bit of a foreground, which, well, it could be like the haze there, or the hedges, sorry, or whatever, just like find a foreground, but vegetation usually works pretty well. It could be a car actually, but it would be a little bit weird maybe. And the thing is, in terms of proportion, we do have something a little bit more balanced. So we do have like a ground, and we actually understand what's going on, that we do have like a nice pavement, and here we do have like a more sky, which is sort of still interesting to have. and we have a better view also of what's like how the street continues. And also that's something I wanted to suggest, is that since this sort of really nice artificial lighting is quite well and is quite efficient, I would suggest maybe having some sort of lamppost scattered that sort of create dim lights and makes it like a little bit more eerie and quite interesting. It doesn't have to look scary, but still it's something that would add a little bit of detail, and that could be actually quite interesting, I think, since the artificial lighting seems to be the strong point of the image. Another thing I always talk about when I see them is the 3D people. Well, it's strictly subjective, but I'm really don't like them. They always look a little bit like, especially when they're low polygon, they don't really look good. So I would suggest, like, especially when you're just having like it's simple eye level people, except for this one, but it's quite easy to find cutouts that would fit perfectly in this sort of settings. So I would suggest using them instead of using some sort of low polygon people that always look a little bit unnatural. Beside that, I think it's pretty much okay. If we look at the contrast, though, I do think it would be interesting to add a little bit of contrast so that we sort of emphasize the artificial lighting. Maybe not that much, but something like that. Just because basically artificial lighting is always going to create a lot of contrast between the naturally lit part, but there's no sun, and the artificial light. So you want to sort of emphasize that. Second thing you can do is use the dodge and burn tool to create the dodge tool. You can use it to sort of emphasize again the lighting, and also you can emphasize what's happening on the ground, because your lighting is going to reflect on the ground here, so you can play around with it. Same here. And if we had like a lampshade or whatever, we could have some sort of lighting happening. It could actually be fun to be sitting under a lampshade so that you do have some sort of lighting, artificial lighting happening, say on a tree or through the trees or something like that. That could make some really cool effects. And the burn tool can be used to sort of tweak textures that are not that convincing. The one I'm referring to is this one, which is extremely there is a slight variations in it, but it does look still quite homogeneous, but a little bit too much. So you can still like emphasize a little bit this sort of things with the burn tool, and just like maybe on this part of the building or here, burn tool and dodge tool are like the best tool on asphalt and basically ground floor, because they just create awesome effect in just a couple of clicks. So I guess that's it here. As you can see, it's just quite a bit of a difference, but it looks a little bit more dynamic. So that's interesting. And final thing we can have a look at is saturation is fine. As you can see, our artificially lit part are saturated properly. Same with the sky. This shouldn't be this saturated actually, but it's all right. And if we look at the colors, we do have like nice colors, which is obviously quite easy to get when you're dealing with a dusk sky. We've got like nice reflections, etc. Another thing that is really well done in this image is the animation of the facade, because as you can see, we have like some are lit, others are off, and it does create some realism in terms of people actually live there. I quite like also the detail of the curtain there, plus the reflection, which is quite interesting, of the trees. Tiny thing though is that I would suggest having some sort of something on When you can see into apartments upward, it's interesting to try to add some sort of details of like a lamp shade on the ceiling so that you know what's happening, or maybe just get a painting, but just so that we know what's happening in there, and that you don't end up having just like a flat surface, because otherwise it's not really cool. Or the other thing you can do is using IES light, or so that you get like a radiant or some sort of just like a specific way of scattering light on the surface so that it doesn't look that flat. But beside that, it's really convincing. I think I'm gonna stop there. So yeah, really cool image. I hope you've learned some interesting tips on that you can use on your next dusk rendering, and hopefully I'll see you next time. Thank you guys. Bye.
Snyder. Hey, Dylan. I kind of knew.